I have been waiting for this chapter for 3 long years. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to be taking a fully spoilery look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 118. Now, for 3 years ago, in 2021, I released a video talking about little guy, the little kaiju that started all of this, the little larval kaiju. And I discussed the way it was presented and how Matsumoto had gone out of his way to give this horrifying little bug very neotenous human proportions when it comes to the eyes and the hands. That means that the ratio of eye to skull and the ratio of hand and arm to body length are more those of a child than of an adult human being. And how this showed up even more strikingly during Kaiju number 8's fight with Director General Iso Shinomiya way back in chapter 32. There's this one scene in particular where even while fully transformed into the Kaiju number 8 form, the proportions that Matsumoto chose to present Kaiju number 8 in were very similar to how manga generally present a toddler or a preschooler. And from this I speculated that a major story arc that we were going to get was going to be Kafka actually having to turn inward and form a greater bond with little guy to understand little guy and show empathy to this horrifying kaiju creature. And I think what this illustrates is just how good Matsumoto is at foreshadowing. Part of it was, as I said, from the very beginning, Matsumoto designed this character so that even when the character was in a ugly, horrifying, or terrifying state, Matsumoto could still draw the character to express a certain level of childlike innocence, both in the larval form and in the Kaiju number 8 form. And another thing is that Matsumoto really has a good grasp of the psychology of the readership, of the audience for this kind of classic Shonen Jump manga. And we really see that in how Matsumoto is able to play on our feelings and then knowingly play on our feelings and then use that as foreshadowing. I'm going to get right into the spoilers now, so if you don't want any spoilers, you can go check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of my book. Hidden Fires, the second book in the Dying Embers series, is now available on Amazon. Google Cold by Rakuten. It will be available on Barnes & Noble as soon as I get it up. But go there, hit the like and sub, and see if you want to get yourself one of my books. Now, spoilers. This is the chapter where Kafka is forced to turn inwards and address the kaiju that started all of this. That little larval kaiju that flew down his throat, that sought him out and found him. We now have so many answers. Why did the little larval kaiju look for Kafka? Well, partially it's because Kafka is the genetic descendant of one of the original samurai who died at the Battle of 1647. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of the area where they were. In what would become Tokyo, one of Kafka's ancestors fought and died in that battle. This probably gave Kafka a certain level of genetic compatibility with little guy. But also there was the psychology of the thing. We know little guy is psychic, has a certain level of telepathy. And Kafka, in that moment, watching Reno about to get smushed, was projecting the same essence of despair and rage and shame at his own inability to protect people. That was the dying zeitgeist of the soldiers the samurai who collectively died on the battle 400 years before. Little guy waking up now, we still don't know why the little guy chose this moment to wake up. The chances that in 400 years of the citizens of Tokyo fighting to defend themselves from kaiju, there wasn't another descendant of one of those hundreds of samurai who died there experiencing those same emotions, those are pretty slim, because those are very, I would assume they were common emotions to feel in that situation. So why did little guy wake up now? Did it take 400 years for that bodiless kaiju to manifest? Very possibly. It takes 17 years for a cicada to manifest in colder climates. And the artwork is very heavily based on cicada larvae and biology. So it very well could just be a matter of timing. It could be that the kaiju that was the spawn of this human will wasn't going to manifest itself until the other kaiju, the wild type kaiju that was just a kaiju, gained enough power to be a threat. But to summarize, we still don't know exactly the why of the when. Why did the little kaiju decide to wake up and find its host now? Why it chose Kafka. Kafka is a descendant of one of those samurai, and Kafka had the right mental headspace to fulfill the little kaiju's needs. But in this chapter, it's very much like I expected it was going to be, but then again, very different. And you get to see Kafka reacting to this chapter, Kafka taking that final step to gain the ultimate power, because of who he is. The core aspect of Kafka, and I think one of the reasons why this chapter is so satisfying, is that it's not just out of the blue that Kafka is able to do this. Matsumoto perfectly set up the situation so that it requires Kafka, not just any soldier, but Kafka. Kafka who has that drive to protect, who has that shame at his weakness and his inability to protect, but most importantly, Kafka who is able to express compassion and empathy to everyone. Kafka is, to put it in a very cliched trope, a pure-hearted hero. He just instinctively reaches out and protects people and takes care of them, no matter what they've done to them, no matter whether they're useful to him, no matter whether they've caused him pain and suffering, he is able to express empathy to anyone, even to little guy. This little kaiju that was born of human desire to protect and the shame at being helpless. And through this bond of compassion, Kafka is able to make the hard choice to seize the power and give up his physical humanity. And again, everything is so satisfying because Matsumoto prepared the way for all of this every step along the way from chapter 1. Now this raises the chapter, are we getting close to the end? No. Even once Kafka achieves this power, we still pretty much have to get him back to human form, so there's another story arc. Then we still have all the kaiju out there. Even if you take out kaiju number 9, even once he's completely gone, even if they find a way to defeat this giant dispersed kaiju underground, which is not going to be easy, that's a couple arcs there, there's still all the regular kaiju to deal with. There is no reason for this series to end now, and I think we could basically just be moving on to a different story arc. Because all of the challenges that face Japan, that face the Defense Force, Kafka's reason for fighting is not going to go away once he defeats this giant kaiju. There will still be giant class kaiju attacking Japan, probably for forever. This is like the very real-life situation of the earthquakes, the natural disasters that Japan has to face on a regular basis. Just because Japan survives one earthquake, it doesn't mean the geological situations that causes the earthquakes have been solved. And just because Kafka defeats this one giant kaiju, doesn't mean that the naturalistic causes of kaiju are going to be solved. So, no, I don't think the story is ending anytime soon. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Were you also waiting for the moment when Kafka finally had to reach inward and commune with the monster inside of him? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.
Step into a world of science and of story, of laughter and of tears. Betty Adams has crafted entire worlds of science fiction and science fantasy adventure in her Humans Are Weird series and in her Dying Embers series. Be prepared to laugh, cry, and become absorbed. Check out her books at the links below the video.